I mentioned some of the fairy tale imagery here. Um, one of my favorite unrealistic kind of fairy tale images is of the old lady taking care of the kids, and the kids all follow her. So the lady's in the front, and the little kids are back, kind of going older to younger, all the way in the back. And there's a scene where you actually see a mama duck with a bunch of little baby ducks, and it's meant to remind you she's like the mama duck, and they're like the baby ducks. That the natural world has an order, and that the kids that we see all those, there's Mr. Powell is bad, and that New York City den of evil looking area where Ruby goes is bad, but the natural world is like more, I don't know, it's better. It's not entirely, I mean, obviously the owl still kills the little bunny. By the way, that image, of course, is a metaphor for children, small things, weak things being in danger from big dangerous things. The owl is a metaphor for Mr. Powell, and the little bunny is a metaphor for the kids. But also, it's about how dangerous things attack weaker things, all everywhere, all times. It's a big kind of fairy tale thing, and it's a really fairy tale image to suggest that like the little old lady with the kids following her is like the duck mama with all the little duck babies. It's not fully realistic. It's a little ridiculous, but it's cute as hell. Um, all right, cool. So I think this is going pretty good. All right. So I've talked about a lot of this stuff. Okay. So I got a lot of bugs on me. They're all trying to kill me here. Okay, cool. Let's talk about some other stuff in this movie. Um, let's talk about some bigger stuff like theme, some like larger kind of theme things. And I'll toss in some other things about. Oh, I just spilled some water. That's not so good. So I'll talk about some theme stuff. I'll get to some theme stuff, and along the way, I'll probably stop and talk about some other kind of camera worky kind of stuff, etc. And we'll talk about that sort of as we go. Um, the love, I talked about cosmic good and evil, right? That it's Mr. Powell versus that nice little old lady. That it's about, owls versus rabbits. It's about love versus hate. It's a small story about just one guy, and it's also a bigger, more cosmic story. But one of the big sort of cosmic. By the way, I should mention this. If you've ever seen tattoos spelling out words on people's fingers. Now, very dramatically, it's used in The Simpsons on the guy that robs people, the criminal guy in The Simpsons. But Do the Right Thing. If you know Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, which is one of the best movies ever made, if you know Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, Radio Raheem has love and hate written on his knuckles. Now, Spike Lee went to film school. I guarantee you he saw Night of the Hunter. It's a very famous, really good movie, and I think he took that from here. It's like a tribute to another really great movie, which again is about individual people, but also about larger issues, larger sort of philosophical issues. And if this movie is about sort of, yeah, okay. So it has a larger philosophical framework, right? Like the traditions of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are held up as these larger cosmic forces, sort of thinking about what's going on with these characters. So let's talk a little bit about some other kind of theme. Oh, I should say something also about Powell's dialect. Notice that Powell has a sort of unusual way of speaking. He uses old-fashioned Bible words. John's dad asks him, what's this strange religion you got going? And he says, that's a deal worked out betwixt me and the Lord. Betwixt is like a King James Bible word. It's not a normal word. And his character is marked with this kind of interesting speech pattern. Interestingly, when Shelley Winters gets brainwashed by him, you'll hear her use the word betwixt. She got it from him. It's a great little detail about how she really lets people get in her head. So I really like it a lot. But let's talk about some bigger theme issues in this movie. Night of the Hunter is about a lot of things. One of the things it's about is misogyny. Misogyny is hatred of women. The GYN in misogyny is the same GYN in gynecology. Gyno is Greek and means woman. Andro is ancient Greek and means man. An android is a robot that looks like a man, a human being, a person. Androgynous has andro in it and also has GYN. What does androgynous mean? It means someone that looks a little bit like a man and a little bit like a woman at the same time, because it has andro, meaning man, and gyno, meaning woman. Androgynous, GYN. I'm real sorry. This is not usually what I do in film class, but I'm also a Shakespeare professor, and I care a lot about words, and I'm very interested in word histories and sort of where words come from. This movie is a movie about misogyny. It's about a hatred towards women. Obviously, Powell hates women. He says his whole thing is just serial killing women. Um, he seems very sex and sexual desire seems to make him want to kill. There's a scene where he is watching the stripper with a bunch of other men, and they're all watching the stripper. I'm going to say something ridiculous and vulgar here, and you're all just going to have to put up with it, and I apologize. But there's a bunch of men. They're watching a stripper. You got to think a lot of those guys in the audience watching this beautiful woman take her clothes off are getting erections. Powell doesn't get an erection. Powell takes a switchblade out. Now, he could have taken a gun out, he could have taken a knife out, but it's a switchblade because it kind of pops up. Not unlike an erect penis. I know that's a ridiculous thing to say. I apologize for saying that. Maybe forget that I said that because it's ridiculous. But I think it's an interesting choice of weapon because it kind of extends itself. And in a movie about hating women, and one of the key first times that you see that switchblade, is during a strip show, and all the other men are watching this woman take her clothes off. But that our guy takes a switchblade out because he doesn't need a penis. He needs a switchblade because he doesn't want to have sex with women. He wants to murder them. If you took my 201 class on Macbeth, we talked quite a bit about how for Macbeth, violence is a replacement for sex. There's something of that here. For Reverend Powell, it feels like violence is a replacement for sex, that stabbing women is his way of penetrating bodies. Because he's repulsed by sex, or turned on by it, and repulsed by his own being turned on. I think he's just repulsed by sex, and he murders. He says, God, how many? He just can't even remember how many women he's killed. And he says, do you want me to kill all women, Lord? Well, it's too much to kill a world. There's a bigger issue here. It's not just some women that get on his nerves. He hates all women and wants to murder all of them. He thinks they're filthy. And for that crime, he thinks he's like Old Testament God here to sort of murder them all. It's an extremely dramatic thing. And he's a big sort of super evil creature. But this theme keeps going on in the movie in all kinds of interesting ways. So what do I want to talk about next? Oh, so like Ruby, for example. Ruby really wants to be told how beautiful she looks, right? And the prettiest thing you've ever seen. He says she's pretty because he wants to get something out of her. He wants to know where John and Pearl are. But then she says again, ain't I the prettiest thing you've ever seen? And he pulls his knife out like he's ready to stab this like 14-year-old girl. I don't know how old she is, but he's ready to stab this girl in the street. Because she's interested in being pretty. She cares about movie magazines and good-looking people. And he wants to kill her. But it's extended also to even to Pearl. By the way, I love the way she says her name. I can't do it justice, but she puts like 45 vowels in her own name. Pearl. It's great. It makes me super happy. Pearl. I can't do it. But it's funny. I hope you thought it was funny I love the way the little girl says her own name. It's hilarious. When I have film class in person, we try it out in person. But he even calls her when he's mad at her in the kitchen table when he's trying to bribe him with food. He even calls her this kind of filthy. He uses language about her being this disgusting creature because he finds all women, even small children who are girls, to be disgusting and terrible. And he's entirely motivated by violence against women. It's why it's so interesting. And you saw the scene on his wedding night. He doesn't want to have sex. He's so repulsed by sex. He doesn't have sex with his wife. He shames her for wanting sex. So this is very much a movie about hatred of women. It's why it's really important that when the kids run away, they don't find a helpful dad figure. They find a helpful mom figure. It's not a little old man who helps the kids at the end. It's a little old lady. Why? Because Harry Powell's whole thing is hatred against women, controlling women, killing women, destroying women. And here's this old lady, and she's going to stand against him because she's a strong female force that he is completely, and by the way, hilariously unable to deal with. He seems like such a terrifying figure for most of the movie, but when that little old lady confronts him, he is not functional. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. But we're going to talk about something bigger, which is how a lot of the characters in this movie are misogynist. It's not just the bad guy, it's everybody.